Hey cousins, welcome to Brown Liquor and Bad Ideas.
Welcome, cousins, to this episode of Brown Liquor and Bad Ideas. I'm your cousin Cornell Wright, the People's Lobbyist. So join me. We're going to have a quick review of some of the climactic changes occurring across our country. Brown Liquor and Bad Ideas is intended for the participation of responsible adults of legal drinking age who wish to engage in substantive virtual discussions and social drinking for entertainment purposes only. Brown Liquor and Bad Ideas does not advocate the abuse of alcoholic beverages. Choosing to participate in any of the drinking activities shared in the program should be made with moderation and caution and is the sole responsibility of the user. Now, cousins, the weather or the climate has impact on all of us, right? And when we start taking a look at this thing from a whole environmental standpoint, we all need to be concerned, engaged, and motivated to start to see what we can do about helping to address and fix it. So, cousins, there was a point in time when people were denying climate change as being real. Cousins, to them, I say, you're going to believe me or your lying eyes. Because, cousins, think about what we've seen. Think about what you're experiencing. Think about what you now know about this. And the question is, what is going to happen as a result of it? So I'm not going back in history. Let's just talk about right now within the last few months of what we've had a chance to see. 2021, okay? It started off, and you cousins down in Texas, you had this horrific winter storm like they have in the northern part of the country that you don't think you ever get. And notice the words people are talking about, 100-year event. All right, cousins? You had that 100-year event. Cousins died as a result. Cousins were having financial issues as a result. Cousins were having structural problems as a result. Insurance companies are paying off a whole bunch of money. FEMA had the chance to get involved. It impacted transportation. It impacted distribution of COVID-19 vaccinations. It impacted everything, right, cousins? And did we have any response to it? No, because it was nature and it was climatic and it was significant. I had a chance of visiting some relatives up in Michigan here recently. And I-94, a major interstate highway going into Detroit, because of the amount of rains that they had, caused it to flood. Now, I don't know about you cousins, but I lost one of my favorite cars once thinking I could drive through the flooded area. It was a big car. It was pretty powerful. I was, doing pretty well. Drove through it, and the car stopped. I lost my car as a result of that. So cousins, think about all those cousins that are up in Michigan. In fact, it actually was shutting down. And if I understand, Vice President Harris was in the process of trying to visit Michigan. She couldn't go visit. Now, they claim there was other reasons, but you know why. Secret Service said, hey, if we can't get out some major thoroughfares or those kind of things, there's too many other variables that we can't control. We're not going to go visit Detroit. I'm sure she'll get back to you folks later. Cousins, you talk about the cousins in the Midwest having difficulties. Cousins, think about in Eugene, Oregon, at the University of Oregon, where they had the Olympic track and field trials for our Olympic team going to Tokyo. They had to suspend part of the events and activity because it was too hot. In Palm Springs, they had major concerns about the heat. And so think about this, cousins, and think about this in context. Once you start talking about the heat getting hotter, what have we started to see across the entire country, from New York to California? The electrical companies coming out and saying, hey, folks, let's press the brakes on using electricity. Don't use the air conditioners quite as much, or let's start having different types of patterns of usage. Don't use microwaves, washers, and dryers when you don't have to. Try to have it off cycle so that the business can still be conducted during the day, and we can start have these things in the evening. What does that sound like to you, cousins? Is that what we want to have for the United States of America? We were now in the process of doling out electricity because we don't have a sufficient grid structure to manage that? Because of the now increased amount of heat that our country is experiencing because of the climate change issues? Is anybody questioning that anymore? Come on, cousins. As my grandmother used to say, some people don't believe fat meat is greasy. What more do you need to see, cousins? I had a chance to talk to a woman who owned a vineyard in northern New York State. She was talking about how because of the climate changes, she was starting to be able to plant new grapes that were not suitable prior to in her climate, but because the heat was rising and the temperatures, she could provide different grapes in order to provide different wines. Now, for you cousins, I'm not a vintner, so I don't know, but I understand a little bit about vines. It takes more than a year to grow them. So that means she's looking at a few years in the future in regards to what wine she's going to be able to produce. And then beyond that, it takes a little time, for it to mellow, in the cask and that sort of thing, right? She's looking at maybe a 3 to 10-year decision based upon being able to plant new vineyards because of the change in the climate. Cousins, this is here. It's been here. So whomever was telling you before that it was not here, they either owe you an apology or an explanation of why they were so wrong. Right, cousins? Let's drink to being wrong in that case. Because what do we say, cousins? Brown liquor, and those were bad ideas. So cousins, we need to start figuring out what's the right approach for us to start moving forward. The planet is also in the same situation. We need to start figuring out what's the right thing for the United States to continue to be what? 1, a leader, and 2, to start taking care of the cousins. Because we're going to continue to deny what we're all experiencing and we're all seeing, how can we do that? And call ourselves responsible, not only for us, but for the little cousins behind us. What kind of world are we going to leave them if we're not paying attention to 1, what we're doing, and 2, the impact of what we're doing on our planet, our environment, which is the only spaceship we have. You with me, cousins? The only spaceship. So with that, cousins, let me ask you to start thinking about this more. Let's start having some conversations, some dialogue, and just recognize that this is something that needs to be happening. We need to pay attention and start recognizing that climate change is having impact on us, and we need to start to recognize what changes we need to make so they can be as moderate as possible before they have to be as extreme as possible. And cousins, we know what extreme is after having the COVID last year and where everything had to get shut down. I think that was extreme. Maybe not as extreme as it could have been, but more extreme than perhaps any of us wanted. The same situation is now going to start to exist in climate change in the environment. We're going to continue talking about it on Brown Liquor and Bad Ideas. Why? Because, cousin, when you really get down to it, the only thing we all have in common is the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the food we eat. Cousins, you take care of yourselves, and we'll see you on the next episode of Brown Liquor and Bad Ideas. Continue wearing your mask if you've not been vaccinated or if you don't know who you're around, all right? So if I'm wearing my mask, you see me, it's because I don't know you. You tell me you're vaccinated, show me your card. Hey, mask comes down, I'm gonna smile at you just like I'm doing now and toast you because we're taking care of each other. See you next week on Brown Liquor and Bad Ideas.
We are the people. Welcome to the show. Here we go again.